Education Policy 2020 Issues and Concern by Farooq Amin. So without much time, I just want to introduce him. Farooq Amin, ITS, Deputy Director General, retired, Department of Telecommunications, Minister of Communications and IT, Government of India. Mr. Farooq Amin belongs to 1978 batch of Indian Telecom Services. He is a Bachelor of Engineering, Electronics and Communication in the first class registration and Master of Business Relations Finance in first class. Mr. Farooq Amin is a Fellow, Institution of Engineers India and Institution of Electronics and Communication Engineers India. He started his career as a scientist in Ministry of Defense and later he joined Doordarshan Kendra, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Hyderabad. After successfully passing the telecommunication services, he was posted to Telecommunication Training Center, Jabalpur and Advanced Level Telecom Training Center, Ghaziabad during 1980-82. Mr. Farooq Amin has received advanced training in electronics and switching system, digital transmission system, GSM, WLL, internet and broadband networking system. He has also attended a number of seminars conducted by International Telecommunication Union and advanced management courses conducted by Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Mr. Farooq Amin has a wide range of experience in installation, commissioning, and management of new technology switches, digital trunk automatic exchanges, national internet backbone, network, cellular and WLL mobile network, optical and radio transmission system. He was also debated to Kingdom of Saudi Arabia from 1989 to 1992 for execution of telecommunication expansion projects. He worked as a project director at TCIL Pune during 1992-93 and as a deputy general manager government Goa during 94 and 94 to 97. He was promoted as general manager Mysore Telecom District in the year 2000. He worked as general manager at Operation BSNL Karnataka Telecom Circle, Bangalore during 2003 and 2007. He was transferred as general manager development to Assam in May 2007. He was the chairman of and chief coordinator of the 3G mobile technology equipment validation committee for the network of equipment supplied by Mrs. Hoy China and Mrs. Alcatel and Mr. Elections to south, west, north, and east zones respectively. Mr. Farooq Amin has also contributed towards publication of a number of articles, newsletters, and engineering instructions on telecommunication system. He has also guided a number of students in the Indian universities for their technical and management studies. He has also held the post of Chief General Manager Assam Telecom Circle and Quality Assurance Circle, Bangalore, for a brief spell during 2007 to 9 and 2010 to 11. Mr. Farooq Amin retired as Deputy General Manager, HAG Center, Department of Telecom, the Ministry of Communication, IT, New Delhi on 31st December 2011 on superannuation. So we're glad to be to have Mr. Farooq Amin amongst us. He will present his presentation on the National Education Policy 2020 issues and concerns. So over to Farooq Amin, sir.
Thank you, Shafi Ahmad Sahab. Respected President of today's function, Professor Muzaffar Hussain Asadi Sahab. Respected guest speaker of today's function, Professor Rizwan Khaisar Sahab. Mohtarama Dr. Shabina Tallat Sahiba, my friends from Humble Intellectuals, and my friends from ITS. Guests and my dear friends. The main objective of my today's presentation is to share knowledge in respect of education policy which was drafted in the year 2019 and approved by Cabinet of Central Government in the year 2020. Ever since independence, the central government has been formulating various educational policies to determine the future of citizens of this country. The present policy is extension of that. A committee was formed under the chairmanship of Dr. Kasturi Rangan and Associates in the month of December 2018. And this committee deliberated with many educationists. The committee itself was headed by a scientist and not by an educationist. That itself is separately debatable, but since we are running behind the schedule, I will go ahead with the presentation. Before we go into the details of the NEP 2020, let us review the status of education in India. Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, India's first Minister of Education, envisaged strong central government control over education throughout the country with a uniform educational system. That means the foundation of education in independent India was laid by Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, whose birth anniversary is being celebrated as National Education Day. UT government has been establishing various institutions, commissions, committees, etc. to strengthen the education system in India. As a result of which, Indian Institute of Technology was formed and in 1961 NCRT was also formed. So many with independent powers and to give and suggest and devise policies towards education. The first NPE, that is National Policy of Education, was formed in 1968 by Indira Gandhi, and the second was by Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, and the third one by our current Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In spite of all these committees, recommendations, and good objectives, targets, and strategies, the status of education is very sad, mainly because of ineffective implementation. Post-independence, many committees were formed and their reports were never implemented seriously. Today, education has become just another way to earn money, forgetting the basic aim of education, which is to construct a good human being. India has progressed into an increasing attainment of primary education. In 2011, approximately 75% of the population aged between 7 and 10 years was literate. That is, then in higher education, the enrollment ratio was just 24% in the year 2013, and there is still a significant distance to catch up the tertiary education enrollment levels of developed nations. That is, there is a huge gap between developed nations and India so far as higher education is concerned. At the primary and secondary level, India has a large private school system complementing the government-run schools. About 29% of the students receive private education between the age 6 to 14 age group. Certain post-secondary technical schools are also private. It is estimated that the private education market in India has a revenue of about 450 million US dollars in the year 2008, but it is projected to be 40 billion US dollars market. Let us go through some other statistical data. Annual Status of Education Report 2012 has said that 96.5% of rural children between the ages 6 to 14 were enrolled in schools. While quantitatively India is inching closer to universal education, the quality of its education has been questioned, particularly the government-run schools. While more than 95% of children attend primary school, just 40% of Indian adolescents attend secondary school, that is grades 9 to 12. Since 2000, the World Bank has committed over $2 billion for the purpose of education in India. Some of the reasons for quality include absence of about 25% of teachers every day. That means in government schools, about 25% of the teachers are absent. In January 2019, India had over 900 universities and 40,000 colleges. Now, let us study what is happening in the financial sector so far as investments on education is concerned. The central government has been reducing spending on education. Budget estimates dropped from 1% of the country's income in the government's first budget 2014-15 to 0.62% in the year 2017-18. In 2014, when the current political party came to power, the education share in budget 2 has been slashed from 6.15% in 2014-15 to 3.4% in 2019-20. The share of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, a national program for universal elementary education, in the total allocation dropped to 29% in 2017-18 from 31% in 2016-17. That is, over one period of time, it decreased from 31 to 29, which was 2% less than the previous year as per the analysis of New Delhi-based think tank Center for Policy Research. Per student allocation to the program increased by 17% in 2016 to rupees 6,350 from 5,424 in 2015-16 as enrollment in government schools fell 2% between 2014 and 15. The CPR analysis said. That means the enrollment decreased, but investment increased, expenditure increased. The allocation remains below HRD Ministry's estimate, with Centre releasing rupees 225 billion in the year 2016-17 against a demand of 550 billion. That means the demand was for 550 billion, but allocation was, the released amount was rupees 225 billion. Funds released as the share of approved budget on the Rashtriya Madhyamik Shikshana Abhiyan, an integrated national program for secondary schools, have decreased from 78% in the year 2015-16 to 54% in the year 2016 and 17, showed this CPR study. Consequently, expenditure as proportion to funds available rose from 74% to 94% and 78% in the as on November 30th, 2017. The government has focused on funding education through a cess instead of conventional budget. But even that money, that is about rupees 94,000 crores collected till 2017-18 for secondary and higher education was unused, as a damning CAG report has shown. Now, having studied this background and the data, let us study about NEP 2020. The National Education Policy 2020, which was approved by Union Cabinet, Government of India, on 29 July 2020, outlines the vision of India's new education system. The new policy replaces the previous policy framed in 1986. The policy is a comprehensive framework of elementary education to higher education, as well as vocational training in both rural and urban India. The policy aims to transform India's education system by 2040. That is, the target here is it should be completed by 2040. Shortly after the release of policy, the government also has clarified that no one will be forced to study any particular language, and that the medium of instruction will not be shifted from English to any other regional language. The language policy in NEP is broad guideline and advisory in nature, and it is up to the states, institutions and schools to decide on the implementation. These are the clarifications. Education in India, for the information of our viewers, education in India is in a concurrent list of the subject. That is, education forms both by central as well as state governments. Now, the vision of NEP 2020. The vision has three focused points. That is, education is India-centered education, and it contributes directly to transforming our nation sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society. That is, education is for all, and by providing high quality education to all Indians. Now, the main sectors considered in the NEP 2020 are school education, higher education, teacher education, professional education, vocational education, and National Research Foundation. These are the main focus areas. In addition, there are some other focus areas: technology in education, adult education, promotion of Indian languages, financing education, and Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog, that is, an education commission. These are the main focus areas. In order to understand the issues concerned, we have to quickly go through the main areas of focus and additional focus areas. School education. The main focus areas are concentrated on early childhood education, foundational literacy and numeracy, curriculum and pedagogy, universal access, equitable and inclusive education, and teachers and school governance, regulation of schools. These are the main focused points so far as school education is concerned. A detailed explanation about these activities are also been given in the document. The document comprises of about 453 pages published in English and Hindi. A summary of these policies and recommendations are also given in a summary copy of about 50 pages, for published in all the Indian languages. Early childhood education, that as per the new policy, the early childhood education will start at the age of 3 years, 3 to 6 years. And this all children born in India, which in the age group of 3 to 6, will be enrolled and form the early childhood education. And this will be implemented by 2025. Yes, in this, the special attention will be paid to early language in the school education, early paid to early language mathematics. That means the children will start learning about mathematics in the grades 1 to 5. The policy aims to ensure that every student in grade 5 and beyond must achieve foundational literacy normal numeracy by 2025. The curriculum and pedagogy, the 10 plus 2 system, the current system, that is up 10th standard, that is up to SLC plus PUC, will be merged into 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. That is 5 years basic and then 3 years, then 3 years and 4 years. There will be equal emphasis on all subjects. That means there will not be any specialization on science or arts. So it will be equal importance will be given to science, social science, arts, languages, sports, mathematics, with integration of vocational and academic streams. That means that skill development will also be included in this school education system. Universal access. That means the access to education and its facilities will be available to all through various measures. Equitable and inclusive education. The policy has several concentrated initiatives to ensure that no child loses any opportunity to learn and excel because of circumstances of birth or background. Special education zones will be set up to focus on this. Teachers will be recruited through robust, transparent processes. Promotions will be merit-based, multi-sources, periodic performances, appraisals will happen in progression. That means it will be focused more on improving the quality of teachers. When the quality of teachers recruited is improved, obviously the education standard itself will be improved. That is the belief and feeling of the committee. School governance. This is also a very important aspect of school education. School governance. Schools will be organized into school complexes. That means 10 to 20 public schools will be combined and form a zone governance. This will be the basic unit of governance and administration that will ensure availability of all resources, infrastructure, academic and people. Example, art and music teachers along with strong professional teachers community. That means all the teachers will be given equal importance and about 10 to 20 schools will be combined to form a single zone, a complex. Then the last, that is the 8th point, is regulation of schools. Regulation and operations of schools will be carried out by separate bodies to eliminate conflicts of interest. There will be clear separate system for policy making, regulation, operations and academic matters. So the regulation system will be in force not only to frame the policy, not only to regulate, but also for operation and academic matters. All these points have been formulated with good intentions. Higher education. Higher education focuses on new architecture, liberal education, governance, and regulation. So, what is this new architecture? A new vision and architecture for higher education has been envisaged with large, well-resourced, vibrant, multidisciplinary institutions. the current 800 universities, 800 or 900 as the case may be, universities and 40,000 colleges will be consolidated into about 15,000 excellent institutions. Hence, the substandard institutions will be closed and it may be merged into a higher universities and colleges with to implement good educational schemes. And the education also will be liberal, broad-based and liberal arts education at undergraduate level for integrated, rigorous exposure to science, arts, humanities, mathematics, and professional fields will be put in place. This would have imaginative and flexible curricular structures, creative combinations of study, integration of vocational education, and multiple entry or exit points. Governance. The institutional governance will be based on autonomy, academic, administrative, and financial. Each higher education institution will be governed by an independent board. Regulation will be highlight but tight to ensure financial probity, public spirited standard setting, funding, accreditation, regulation will be conducted by independent bodies to eliminate conflicts of interest. So regulation part is a new thing in education. Teacher education. Teacher preparation programs will be rigorous and will take place in vibrant multidisciplinary higher education. Now, currently we are having 2-year B.Ed programs. This will be integrated as a 4-year integrated stage-specific, subject-specific Bachelor of Education offered at multidisciplinary institutions would be predominant way of becoming a teacher. That means there are now only B.Ed colleges. All these B.Ed colleges will be merged with regular graduation institution, multidisciplinary, that is institutions which are offering art, science, commerce, management subjects. It will be a part and parcel of those institutions. There won't be any independent B.Ed education colleges. Substandard and dysfunctional teacher education institutes will be shut down. This is the proposal. These are explains, objectives and all that. And BA program details also have been given. And one clarification here is the current 2-year B.Ed program will continue till 2030. After 2030, this will be closed. And after that, only 4-year education program will be in force. And the teacher education, along with education, it will be a multidisciplinary. That means if a science teacher is there, he has to study science as well as the education. Good pre-service teacher preparation needs expertise across disciplines for rigorous theoretical understanding of educational perspective, subject and pedagogy along with a strong theory practice connection. This is the main aim of teacher education. Professional education. All professional education will be integral part of higher education system. Standalone technical universities, health science universities, legal and agricultural universities or institutions in these other fields will be discontinued. These technical universities will be closed. Health science universities also will be closed. That means, as seen in Karnataka, VTU may be closed. Rajiv Gandhi Health Science Universities may be closed. Now, it will be in place of that, the professional education, agricultural education, legal education, healthcare education, and technical education. These are the focused areas. So, the main focus on professional education will be reintegrating professional education into a higher education and revitalizing professional education. The objective of this scheme, this recommendation is build a holistic approach to the preparation of professionals by ensuring broad-based competencies and 21st century skills, an understanding of social human context and strong ethical compass in addition to the highest quality professional capacities. Preparation of professional must involve an education in ethic and importance of public purpose. Here the more emphasis will be given to public purpose and education in the discipline and education for practice. For this to happen, professional education must not happen in the isolation of specialty. Curriculum will be renewed to develop among students the ability to apply their knowledge and skills in different, often unknown settings and inculcating professional disposition. These will be the strategic thrust on new and emerging disciplines. Example, artificial intelligence and big data analysis. All emphasis will be given independently and the curriculum will be renewed accordingly. Accreditation and ranking of institutions will be incentivized. Collaboration with industry. Hence, all professional institutions will have to collaborate with industry and faculty with industry experience, and enhanced internship opportunities will be inculcated. Vocational institutions. These vocational institutions also will be integrate vocational education into all educational institutions, that is schools, colleges and universities. Provide access to vocational education to at least 50% of all learners. That means 50% of the students are expected to join vocational institute and 50% to the higher education system. So that is the diploma courses and ITI courses, everything will be integrated into vocational education so that immediately after completion of education, the students will get employment. The National Skills Qualification Framework will be detailed further for each of the disciplines and vocations professionals. Further, Indian standards will be aligned with international standards classification of occupations maintained by ILO. The framework will provide basis for recognition of prior learning. So that means these vocational education will be brought on par with international standards and recognition of prior learning will be given utmost importance. Vocational education at undergraduate level will be scaled up to the capacity of 50% of the enrollment by the 5-year duration 2030 to 35. Models of offering vocational education apprentice can also be experimented with by higher education institution. Incubation centers will be set up in higher education institute in partnership with industries. Lok Vidya, knowledge developed in India will be made accessible to students through integration into vocational education courses. Details of this Lok Vidya are not readily available. However, this needs to be studied further. National Research Foundation. A new entity will be set up to catalyze quality academic research. Objective of this NRF will be catalyze and energize the research and innovation across the country in all academic disciplines with a special focus on seeding and growing research at universities and colleges, create a conducive ecosystem for research through competitive peer reviewed funding and mentoring and facilitations. Research and innovation are central to the growing and sustaining a large and vibrant economy, uplifting society and inspiring a nation to achieve greater heights. The rapid changes occurring in the world today, climate, technology, and population dynamics, and so on, make a robust research system more important than ever. There are other details. This how this NRF will be formed and how much allocation will be given, etc., are also explained in the draft agreement, which has been accepted by the government, by the cabinet. And the scope of primary scope funding, research, all those things are included here in these recommendations. The foundations will have four major divisions to start with: science, technology, social sciences, arts and humanities. Now, having completed the main focus areas, let us take up the additional key focus areas. First one will be technology in education. So this is appropriate integration of technology into all levels of education to support teacher preparation and development, improve teaching, learning and evaluation processes, enhance educational access to disadvantaged groups. This is very important so far as backward communities and minority educations are concerned. That is, I repeat, enhance educational access to the disadvantaged groups and streamline educational planning, administration and management. This is a very good objective. This has to be discussed in detail, not in this seminar. Maybe separate seminars have to be conducted by the concerned groups. This policy aims at appropriately integrating technology into all levels of education to improve classroom processes, support teacher, professional development, enhance educational access for disadvantaged groups, and streamline educational planning, administration, and management. Hence, even for this, an autonomous body, NETF, that is National Educational Technology Forum, will be set up. And technologies will be integrated into educational process. Example, support translations, act as pedagogical aid, facilitate continuing professional development, online courses, etc. will come under technology in education. The National Repository of Educational Data will maintain all records related to institutions, teachers, and students in digital form. Adult education is also a part of additional key focus areas. Achieve 100% youth and adult literacy rates by 2030 and significantly expand adult and continuing education. This is also a very important area where the backward communities and the minority communities where the illiteracy and ignorance is more can take advantage of this focus area. A cadre of adult education center managers, instructors as well as large team of one-to-one tutors created through National Adult Education Tutors Program will be capacitated to deliver education. These are the details how the adult education implementation will change. Most probably the government may employ as educational managers or teachers, sub-instructors separately, and maybe the retired teachers may take advantage of it. And the existing system will not be dispensed of, but it will be leveraged to identify participants. Community volunteers will be encouraged. The minority community may please note, community volunteers will be encourage each literate member of community to teach at least one person to read will be a key strategy. Large-scale public awareness will be generated. There will be special emphasis on women's literacy. This is also a very important factor for minority community. Promotion of Indian languages. This is also a lot of controversial statements were appearing in the media and press. But let us see what it is. Promotion of Indian languages. Ensure the preservation, growth and vibrancy of all Indian languages. The committee has told all Indian languages, that is including Urdu. Urdu is also one of the important language. The true inclusion and preservation of culture and traditions of each region and true understanding by all students in schools can be achieved only when suitable respect is given to all Indian languages, including tribal languages. It is thus absolutely critical to preserve the truly rich languages and literatures of India. Under this subheading or under this additional focus area, the promoters of Urdu should take advantage and pursue their cases vigorously. Hence, it says existing national institutes for promotion of classical languages and literature will be strengthened. A national institute for Pali, Persian and Prakrit will also be set up. And we have the mandate for the Commission for Scientific and Technical Terminology, namely to develop a vocabulary for uniform use across the country, will be renewed and vastly expanded to include all disciplines and fields and not just the physical sciences. Financing the education. This is also a very important focus area. There will be substantial public investment to expand and vitalize public education. This policy commits to raising educational investment as it believes that there is no better investment towards society's future as the benefits of education accrue to the society as a whole. The policy therefore envisions an increase in public investment on education by both central government and all state governments to 20% over a 10-year period. That means 20% of the revenue will be spent on education by both central and state governments. Financial support will not be compromised for important components such as learning resources, matters of student safety and well-being, nutritional support, adequate staffing, teachers development and support for all initiatives to ensure equitable high-quality education for underprivileged and underrepresented groups. This also is very important for minorities education. The policy calls for rejuvenation, active promotion and support for private philanthropic activity in education sector. All public spirited funding on a not-for-profit basis for educational endeavor will be channelized towards critical needs of existing institutions. These details have been given. All this in so many expenditure details, that is improvement of child education, foundational literacy, all these things have been included in these financing policies. The matter of commercialization of education has been dealt by the policy through multiple relevant fronts, including light but tight regulatory approach, the substantial investment in public education, and by mechanisms for good governance, including transparent public disclosures. So, the private institutions have to take note of this. The matter of commercialization of education has been dealt by the policy through multiple relevant fronts, including light but tight regulatory approaches. Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog. Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog or National Education Commission will be formed, headed by Prime Minister. This will be custodian of vision of education of India. Synergetic functioning of India's education system to deliver equity and excellence at all levels, from vision to implementation, will be led by a new Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog. The Indian education system needs inspiring leadership. According to the committee, the Indian education system needs inspiring leadership which will also ensure excellence of execution. And the formation of this committee, who will be there, what will be the composition of Ayog, have also been given in this area. The Ayog will work closely with every state to ensure coordination and synergy. States may set up apex state level bodies for education, which may be called Rajya Shiksha Ayog or State Education Commission. And there will be Rajya Shiksha Ayog at state level and Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog at country level. Now, having studied about the general recommendation of NEP, not general, specific recommendation and implementation. Now it has become Act of Parliament. Now let us see what is the problem with education amongst minorities and backward classes in general and Muslims in particular. Muslims have the poorest literacy rate. According to the Sachar Committee report, the Muslim community has poorest literacy in the country, and bringing about any improvement in literacy level among Muslims would be difficult if this 50% of community's population is not encouraged to educate itself. Further, Sachar Committee has reports says that only 4% of the enrolled Muslims children go to madrasas. That means, and 66% of the Muslims go to government schools. That means, if we improve government schools, a large chunk of Muslims' education will improve. And only 30% of the Muslims go to private institutions. No middle class person sends his children to madrasas. It is only poor Muslims who cannot afford school education or happen to live in areas where state fails to provide primary education. The children are forcibly sent to madrasas. So only madrasas comprises of poor children from the poor Muslims. Now, this was the general condition of Muslims education. Now, Muslims education issues. Muslim girls are amongst the least educated sections of Indian society. Muslim girls. Enrollment rates continue to be low, 40.6% as compared to 63.2% in the case of other communities. That means only 40% of the Muslim women are enrolled. See, national enrollment figures are almost 96-98%, whereas amongst Muslims it is only 40.6%. There is a huge gap. Only 16.1% of the Muslim girls from poor families attend school, while 70% of even among Muslims, 70% of the Muslim girls from the economically better off families do so. So, from all well, economically well-off families, 70% of the Muslims from well-off families go to school, and only 16% of the Muslim girls from poor families go to school. Less than 17% of Muslim girls finish their 8 years of schooling, and less than 10% complete higher education. Only 1.5% of Muslims, both boys and girls, and 4.8% urban Muslims children are enrolled in the senior secondary. That means senior secondary school, only 1.5% of the Muslims go in rural areas and 4.8. So a maximum of 5% of urban Muslims only are enrolled in senior secondary schools. The average number of years that Muslims girls study is just dismal 2.7 years as compared to 3.8 years in case of other communities. Higher dropouts among Muslims. The Sachar Committee, which was published in 2006, it also reflects the same feeling that parents feel that education is not important for girls. This thinking has to be addressed by the community itself. Government may not be able to do anything. The committee only has to address all these issues about their institution. Government provides facilities for everyone, same facilities, but how we view it is very important. See here, the Sachar committee has told that the parents feel that education is not important for girls. This point was also emphasized by Mr. Padma Shri Jayaketari in his education. We have to create awareness about the Muslim women's education. That is one of the important tasks. Absence of infrastructure like power, piped water supply, sewerage, these infrastructure are also there everywhere in other localities also, but it is more in Muslim dominated areas. And if the schools are located at a far off places, girls will not like to go at a distance plus to receive education. The next point, having covered the general aspects of literacy and then women's education, madrasa education system. Madrasa and maktabs are the lowest level of education system amongst Muslims. There are about 30,000 to 40,000 madrasas in India at present. The madrasa education system occupies preeminent position in the education delivery system to Muslims. Madrasa is established not only to provide knowledge of Islam but also for teaching the contemporary subject. Madrasas and maktabs are running at a traditional pattern without proper infrastructure like buildings, instructor, teaching aids, trained and qualified teachers, curriculum, residential accommodation and playgrounds. See, there may be few madrasas which may be providing all this infrastructure, but those figures are just countable on fingers. But all the 30,000 to 40,000 madrasas, majority of the madrasas do not have these infrastructure. There is no influence of modern education in their syllabus. The syllabus itself, there is no, even though Abul Kalam Azad provided and his vision was for modernizing, for including modern education in the madrasas, it is even till the date, no influence of modern education in their syllabus. Students of madrasas are having low level of knowledge regarding commerce, computers, etc. Madrasas are generally established in rural areas and majority of madrasas are unaided. Some madrasas receive aid from government only for teachers' salaries. They hardly get any other finances which are essential for teaching learning processes and for quality improvement of madrasa education. Therefore, because of lack of these facilities and in the absence of quality improvement funds, madrasas are struggling hard to compete with other schools. Muslims are having poor facilities in their schools as well as proper education is also absent. Most of the schools are traditional, having problem of medium. the education is also not linked with the employment opportunities. That means there are no job-oriented courses in madrasas. As the economic condition of Muslims are weak, teachers in madrasas are being paid very low salaries, due to which quality and standards of education is very poor. The last and final point among the minorities education is status of Urdu and Arabic. This is also an important point. Systematic discouragement of Urdu language in educational, cultural and literary fields, due to which Muslims are compelled to learn other regional and national languages. Non-availability of Urdu teachers in government schools. Students are required to join madrasas to learn Arabic. Promotion of Indian languages. Ensure the preservation, growth and vibrancy of all languages. This is a point in NEP 20. Hence, medium of instructions also is important. True inclusion and preservation of culture of each region and understand all these points have been included in NEP. Now, having studied, we have given data and all the consideration statistics about the poor literacy among Muslims. Let us go see now suggestions. Let us see suggestions and conclusion. Education, as we know, is an indispensable means of helping Muslim women out of their economic misery, because economic dependency is major factor contributing to low status of Muslims. The Sachar committee talks of correlation between place of residence and education. There is a need to develop more girls school to minimize the problem of accessibility of schools. Parents should develop positive attitude towards girls higher education. This is very important. NEP 2020 aims at achieving an inclusive and equitable education system so that all children have equal opportunity to learn, thrive, and that participation, learning outcomes are equalized across all genders and social categories by 2030. That is, we have about 10 years time. Well, now not 10, 9 years time. Almost 2020 is coming to end. 9 to 10 years time, during which we have to take a very positive action and a forward step and create awareness and implement the schemes, NEP 2020 schemes, to the advantage of the community. Now, government is also going to set up special education zones for the backward and for the disadvantaged. So let us first bring Muslim community into disadvantaged groups or disadvantaged region across the country. Let us see that. Though the more clarifications are required, under these schemes, states will be encouraged to declare these zones based on clear social development and socio-economic indicators, and central government will provide financial support in the ratio 2:1 for every rupee spent by the state. The key idea will have these zones act upon that is stated in this policy for inclusion of underrepresented groups in concerted manner, which close joint monitoring by center and the states. So under these schemes, Muslims can take advantage. Policy actions related to early childhood education, foundational literacy, and numeracy, school access, enrollment, and attendance will receive targeted attention and support for students from underrepresented groups. These are the clauses under which the Muslim groups have to take advantage and think seriously and implement it meticulously. All literates, educationists, and teachers of Muslim community must form a common platform to link with each other and design a common pedagogy for the skills to be instilled in school college going children. Madrasa education system suggestions and recommendations. There is no mention of madrasa education system in NEP. Neither Muslim leaders nor governments are serious to reform the system for the educational development of Muslims. However, madrasa management can join together to formulate the new curricula and pedagogical structure as per the general, flexible, and holistic objectives of NEP. This is for the madrasa management. There are about 30,000 to 40,000 madrasas. These managements have to join together to formulate curricula and pedagogical structure for implementation for all madrasas. We should not wait government to close madrasas. Government may not have intention, or we should not suffer due to poor salaries, poor infrastructure. So we have to formulate and join with the main NEP system to upgrade and modernize madrasa education system. That is our recommendation. Recognize the qualification and skills and merits of madrasa teachers. As we have seen, some of the madrasa teachers are very highly qualified, very skilled, and very knowledgeable. Some, we have to bring all teachers into this group, and we have to see that the system is strengthened. The depth of knowledge, strengthened critical thinking, creativity, scientific temperament, communication, collaboration, multilingualism, problem solving, ethics, and social responsibilities. We have to recognize that. The teachers of Islamic studies are being paid meager salaries. Their salaries should be brought on par with central government pay scales. This is one of the very important parts. But the thing is, the government will not finance madrasa education system. Where to get it? For this, the Islamic type of financial management is there. The Waqf boards, state at central level, are having huge properties. Their return of income, return on investment, incomes are very and these are all being mismanaged by Muslims themselves. Government cannot do anything. The boards have to be strengthened and a very strict laws are to be implemented, and right thinking people should generate more and more income from the Waqf properties. Similarly, we may have to think of formation of zakat boards. Zakat is also an individual to group financing. A group financing system, if it is formed, we can definitely improve the teachers and the infrastructure of the madrasa education system. Madrasas of Islamic studies may be brought under the school complexes to iron out the differences, share the resources, and strengthen the foundation of religion. Recognize madrasas and Islamic institutions like Deoband and Bareilly as higher education institutions, as graduate and postgraduate colleges, which are already attracting international students. Modernization of madrasa-based education, linking education with livelihood, more emphasis on skill development during school, madrasa and pathshala itself. Development of positive outlook, tolerances, scientific temperament at all levels of education, special facilities like learning apps, distance education, embedded education, etc. for linguistic minorities. As we have seen during pandemic, these Zoom classes are becoming very popular, and I have also seen Muslim women are getting are attending a large number of Muslim women are attending classes Arabic. They are learning Arabic, Urdu, and all that. These systems, when established and placed in place in position with recognition and examination and other facilities, will be very fruitful in bringing a sea change. Recognize the qualifications, skills, and merits of madrasa teachers based on their depth of knowledge and strength. The emergence of some of premier Muslim educational institutions across the country, such as Darul Uloom Deoband UP, Aligarh Muslim University, Jamia Millia Islamia, Maulana Jawhar Ali University, Usmania University, etc., have tremendously improved the prospects of community in the sphere of both streams of education. All these institutions should be financed judiciously under the schemes of higher professional, rational, and national research and development funding projects. These are all very important, where the minority institutions should be financed properly. Now, to sum up all recommendations, including Muslim and general recommendations, these are the some suggestions. Actually, today's paper is a result of, my presentation is a result of a small committee formed by Mr. Masood Siddiqui, a senior ITS officer, who formed a committee and asked us to study and give recommendations. The group gave these recommendations, and we also joined with some other organizations like Alif Institution, Bhopal, Hyderabad, and other places who gave the recommendations. So let us summarize the suggestions and recommendations quickly. To provide at least 10% of GDP for educational empowerment. This is for the entire education system in India. Teachers should be highest paid. The focus of education must surely shift from a test of memory or cramming or rote learning to a robust test of intelligence and articulation skills. Number 4. Many foreign countries have great education systems in place which can be studied. However, it is felt when we studied all the education system in Western countries and other countries, we found that Finland education system is said to be the best in the world, where formal education starts at the age of 7 years. Thus, Finland education system should be followed as far as possible. So the proposal of starting the school from the age of 3, as stated in the NEP, should be reconsidered. Privatization of educational institutions should be done judiciously, as it will give full freedom to decide fees, course, curriculum to private sector, which in turn will exclude the disadvantaged sections and minorities from the scene. 3-language formula in schools. It should include Hindi, English, and local or state language. As Urdu and Arabic are widely spoken in India, Arabic is spoken in India and all over the world respectively, it may be included in 3-language formula. Point number 7. NEP 2020 should recognize the positive and useful existence of madrasas, take them into confidence, and prescribe that madrasas shall be adequately represented and covered in the constitution of proposed Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog, its sister bodies, and the National Educational Framework.